All right, we're going to start in Houston, where the Texans were a 3-win team last season. Then they found their coach, they found their offensive coordinator, they found their franchise quarterback, and just about everybody else. And on Sunday afternoon, they showed a nation of football fans that maybe weren't all that familiar with this version of the Texans just how good they are. Breach, I feel like you're the best equipped to answer this question, so I'll start with you. So listen, I saw this stat from the CBS Sports Research Department this week, and the stat started with this question. Are the Texans following the 2021 footsteps of the Bengals? And the 2021 Cincinnati Bengals were 150-1 odds preseason to win the Super Bowl. They went 10-7. They were a number 4 seed, and they made it all the way to the Super Bowl for the loss to the Rams. 2023, the Texans 200-1 preseason odds to win the Super Bowl. They went 10-7. They were the number 4 seed, and they just won their first playoff game. So before we get into the specifics of the Texans' 45-14 whooping over the Browns, I'll ask you this. Does this Houston team feel like the 2021 Cincy team to you in any way, shape, or fashion?
So if you would have asked me this 24 hours ago, I would have said, Wilson, are you smoking crack? Because that is just a ludicrous comparison on the offensive side. I think it would have made sense for most of the team. The big difference to me, though, would have been that C.J. Stroud is a rookie quarterback. Joe Burrow was not a rookie. And the reason that would have been a big difference is because rookies have historically struggled in the playoffs. A rookie quarterback has never led his team to the Super Bowl. Wilson, you're making that face. This is all my thoughts before this game took place. And so what you inevitably have happened every year is that no matter how good a rookie plays during the season, there is eventually a collapse. And I don't know if that's going to come with C.J. Stroud. We're going to talk about how he played. So that would have been my hesitation of making that comparison. But now, after this game, I'm 100% on board with that. I think the 2021 Bengals they're the same team, and now they might get to the Super Bowl. And the rookie storyline's out the window. I don't know what to believe anymore.
You know, I don't know if this is is it a good thing or a bad thing? Wilson, we did HQ like 15 times today. Before
that was a bad thing.
Yeah, right, yeah, that was a bad thing. But you know, I feel like I made the case. Well, making the case, but I wasn't like making the case for the Texans. I picked the Browns. I was dead wrong about the game. But I feel like the case I made was like, here's the case you could make where C.J. Stroud excels, and it was like Browns defense doesn't travel because it's been bad on the road. C.J. Stroud's performed well in college playoff games. I mean, his two big, I think he had a Rose Bowl game, and then he had an actual playoff game against the against Georgia last year where he was fantastic. And man, oh man. That moment for him, and look at this, number 1 Georgia points per game in the nation, a Power 5 team, number 1 in the nation in points per game allowed defensively. They destroyed everybody. Last year's Georgia team, 2022, he threw for 348 and 4 touchdowns, threw for 274 and 3 touchdowns against the Browns. And if Cleveland had been able to muster anything more than pick sixes, then C.J. Stroud would have had even better stats because he would have had to throw the ball more. What struck me was, you know, on that long pass down the field to, I think it was Nico Collins, C.J. Stroud stands in the pocket. He's getting absolutely tattooed, and he just whips it downfield, just very much not scared. I thought Bobby Slowick called a great game. They were extremely aggressive. They had a lot of stuff that Jim Schwartz wasn't ready for. They played into Jim Schwartz's aggressiveness by sort of using his aggressiveness against him. And I don't know that C.J. Stroud's going to run the table in the AFC. I think the Chiefs, we'll get to them in a minute. They look good. The Bills, we'll see how they play. And then the Ravens are still out there. It's a really tough AFC. If C.J. Stroud were the 4 seed in the NFC, I think we'd be having a really serious conversation about it, though.
So a couple things. I made some notes as we were going through this thing because, as Brinson mentioned, Breach, we talked about this game and a couple other games to death in the hours leading up to kickoff. And one of the things that C.J. Stroud did really well during the season was carve up zone defenses, especially 2 deep zones. He struggled against cover 1. And guess what? Jim Schwartz loves to play at a high level, cover 1, and he plays it a lot. They play it more than any other team. And today, they ran cover 1 about the normal rate, just over 35%. Played a ton of cover 3, a little more than they usually play. And Bobby Slowick and C.J. Stroud had answers. That Dalton Schultz touchdown was against cover 1, might have been cover 3. And they ran a vertical route to the left. Dalton Schultz ran it over. And it actually was against cover 2, as it turns out. And the far side safety came down because he bit on the over by Nico Collins. Dalton Schultz was wide ass open on the deep over, and CJ hit him in stride. And the only concern I had on that play was that Dalton Schultz had dropped a pass earlier that hit him in the face, and he double caught that one, but he was so wide open it didn't really matter. That was one of the concerns I had. Another concern I had was, and Brinson touched on this, Cleveland's defense at home, best scoring defense, about 13 points and change. Cleveland defense on the road, 29 and change.
So weird
on the road. And well, part of the issue I wonder is if the crowd noise at home complicates things for the opposing offense.
Good Browns team means a loud crowd for sure. Yeah.
And that helps. The 2 turnovers didn't even matter in terms of the scoring differential. It still would have been more than what they typically give up. That was a concern.
Do you think the weather might be a factor too? I mean,
Well,
remember the
bad. The 49ers game was bad, but that was a sort of a close game.
Yeah, but it was a low scoring close game.
The one thing I will say though is that the 49ers were really, I mean, they played the 49ers and Ravens at home, but the rest of their home schedule wasn't, they played the Jets. They got Burrow week 1 at home. Burrow in week 1. They played the Steelers. They played the Titans. They played, it wasn't a strong offensive.
Cardinals before Kyler came back after like the shine was off the Cardinals.
And Mason Rudolph wasn't playing is what I'm hearing, Breach.
Yeah.
And then I think Purdy got banged up when they were playing them. So the 49ers offense that started their 3-game skid.
Jets,
was the
Bears,
game
Jaguars.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's not to take anything away from the Browns. They deserved it. And we talked about them and we built them up all year, but it just, maybe we slightly overrated their defense by looking at saying, hey, they were so dominant at home. I mean, getting carved up like this. And as you guys just mentioned, CJ Stroud could have thrown for 400 yards if this had stayed a close game.
If Flacco doesn't throw the 2 pick sixes, CJ Stroud throws for 405 touchdowns.
And that's the other thing. The other thing that I was concerned about, in addition to the home road disparity with the defense, is the turnovers. Texans had the fewest turnovers in the league. Browns had the most with 37. And we knew that Joe Flacco, while he's played well since coming into the starting role in week 13, he's also thrown a ton of interceptions. And back-to-back series with pick sixes was the backbreaker. The game was virtually over at that point, and they just had to hand the ball off and run the clock out. But at no point, I'll ask you, Breach, at any point did it feel like this game wasn't in complete control of the Houston Texans?
The only time I thought, maybe the Browns could win this was when they took the 14-10 lead, and it felt like, all right, maybe they got off to a slow start, and the defense just needed a second to adjust to what CJ Stroud was doing. And now they've got him figured out. Now they can slow it down. Joe Flacco just went 4 of 4 for 69 yards to lead him on this touchdown drive. I think that's where he threw the shovel pass to Kareem Hunt. And so in my head, I'm thinking if they can force a punt on this next drive, I would feel pretty good about the Browns winning. But instead, CJ Stroud immediately throws a 76-yard touchdown pass. The Texans are back in the lead, and it was like, oh my God, the Browns defense has no idea what they're doing out there.
The Browns didn't score in the second half.
I didn't do anything in the second half.
I mean, like literally didn't score a single point in the second half. It felt like when they scored, when Flacco hit Kareem Hunt, and somebody in the chat said, "Can we just we overrated the Browns? Can we just say the Texans are good?" We're saying that Texans are really good.
Don't get it twisted. The Texans are awesome, and I mean, I've been saying that for a while.
And what's interesting is that the Texans' success and the Browns' sort of foibles, if you look at the Deshaun Watson trade, and Deshaun Watson didn't play for this team because he was bad for much of the year that he got hurt. The Deshaun Watson trade obviously CJ Stroud, a huge part too, but the Deshaun Watson trade basically rebuilt the Texans. I mean, like the players involved on this team that are being highly successful are in large part because of the Deshaun Watson trade. Like very similar to the Russell Wilson trade with Seattle and Denver, where the team that sent away the quarterback who hasn't elevated the franchise that he went to, and these two teams playing in that game, by the way, noticeable that a lot of guys were making impact plays who were part of that trade as a result of the draft picks that came back. And so I think that, man, you look at this Houston team, even if they don't make a run this year, I think you have to feel really good about where they are for the long haul. Like if you were It's not even remotely close. If you're talking about the full roster, the quarterback, even I think you're taking Houston. If you're talking about Houston versus Jacksonville, I mean, like who's best set up for success over the next 5 to 10 years? You know, you were jumping the gun because it's one season, but the eye test don't lie with CJ Stroud. Now, if Bobby Slowick gets a job somewhere, maybe that's a bit of a concern. But there's going to be, you know, someone else in that that Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, D'Amico Ryan's pipeline to bring in. There is no reason not to be really, really excited about the Texans' potential moving forward.